my name is Shanna Parry, and this is Greg Parry.
Hi.
We are the directors of Kingsgate International School, and we are so happy to be here with you today to talk to you a little bit about the future of education and all the things that we've been through in these past 6 months. So welcome to our webinar. I first want to take just a moment and talk about the enormous stress that the world has been under through this pandemic. It's been a challenging time for all of us, but we have to remember that it's also been a challenging time for our little ones, our students. And so we need to make sure that moving forward, we continue to make the best decisions for our children. And part of that decision process is realizing that it's very stressful for students to be in a classroom where they're not at the same level with other students. It's stressful to always be needing to catch up as a student. So this is where it's really important that we focus on it's easier to keep up than catch up. So we need to make sure as educators and as parents and as a community that we're doing what's best for all children to make sure that they're keeping up with their academics. Now today we're going to be introducing you to a student named Chloe. And Chloe, our fictitious student, is 12 years old now, which means in the year 2040 she's going to be 32 years old. And we want to talk about how we can prepare Chloe for a world not yet invented.
Yeah, certainly what happened very recently, unexpected to all of us, is that almost on a day, the pandemic hit and all of us had to change our lives completely, almost overnight. And the truth is, worldwide, some schools succeeded really, really well, and some schools failed. And really, I guess I'd want to talk a little briefly about what the difference was between those schools that did very well and those schools that struggled. I think one of the first things we noticed in different parts of the world was when there was strong adaptive management, schools really did well.
Absolutely.
I think one of the keys was having high quality teachers that were supported by management. I know our experience was to say to teachers, you're the very best at what you do. Here's some freedoms to make sure you deliver outcomes for kids. Teachers are generally, by default, passionate about caring for kids. And when management remove the obstacles and make sure teachers can get on and do a good job, that's when things happen really, really well. And I think that was the key that what I saw. Schools that did a great job had strong adaptive management, and high quality teachers were allowed to do what they're best at and get on with doing a great job, meeting the needs for children. The other thing I think that was important was relationships. This pandemic was about health, but we all needed to support each other. And I think in schools where there were strong relationships between the stakeholders, between parents and the teachers and management, things went very, very well. Parents didn't necessarily complain about the problem because they knew that they couldn't change the facts that the pandemic was changing people's lives. But the community pulled in together and worked very well together to make sure that they met the needs of children being put first. And I think that was the key difference.
Absolutely. So we know Chloe needs great teachers. We know she needs a good management system behind her. And we know that Chloe needs relationships, and not just Chloe's own relationships, but those relationships that her parents are modeling for her as well. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're preparing Chloe for a world not yet invented, and this is key because we don't know what Chloe's future jobs will be. Chances are the jobs that Chloe holds as an adult probably haven't been invented yet. So we need to make sure that we're preparing her to evaluate information so she's constantly able to do that. What is true? What is right? What is good? What ideas can I take and make them better ideas? Because we want Chloe to be an innovator. We want her to be on the designing end of these jobs and these opportunities. So we need to teach her how to evaluate information, especially with an internet full of different stories. So we need to teach her to evaluate that information, but also take that true information and come up with better ideas. How can I keep this growing? How can I keep this going? We also need Chloe to have a strong value system. It's important that Chloe is honest and has integrity and is a kind person, a global citizen. that cares about those around her. And Chloe needs to also understand that her existence affects people all around the world. And so that interconnectedness is really important for Chloe to understand.
Yes, certainly a lot of people keep saying via social media, in different publications, they keep saying, well, the pandemic will change the way the world was always going to be forever. They believe that suddenly the pandemic will transform education as we know it. Well, I guess that's true, but to some degree, I would argue that we were always on a path of change. What happened though, the pandemic accelerated that pace of change. Some schools were ready and adapted quickly, but other ones are in catch-up mode, and that's a real shame for the children. But ultimately, these changes that we're currently facing, I think were always going to happen. It's just they're going to happen a lot faster. And I think Chloe needs to have a very positive, optimistic view of the world ahead. She can't be one of in the doldrums saying, oh, I don't like this change and I don't want to use this technology. She has to be excited about it. And the truth is, what an exciting time to be in education. I mean, it's changing fast, and the incredible opportunities for children to really adapt and learn effectively. So it really is a great time for us to progress into the future and think about wonderful things. So Chloe needs to be very positive about the future, see it as a bright, shiny opportunity. The other thing though she needs to have is a whole lot of skills that maybe previous generations didn't have. She needs to be able to filter information. She's going to get exposure to a lot more information than maybe former generations. So she needs to be critical of it. The brain is hardwired, in particular the amygdala responds to threats and negative things. So sadly, what we need to be cautious of is that as new information comes to us rapidly, it can be our default position, led by the amygdala, to be a bit negative and to be cautious and to be defensive. We need to counter that by having an optimistic approach where we go, okay, here's the challenge we're facing. Let's turn this crisis into opportunity. So that needs to be Chloe's mindset for sure. She needs to have exposure to digital technology and new information, but not what we might call digital obesity. How is she being fed? Is she being fed with positive things or just negative? So as parents and as educators, we need to make sure she has positive exposure to information and knowledge, and not just the negative ones as well.
And let me just jump in here. And if you think about Chloe's life here, Chloe is growing up in a generation that they know there's going to be change. You know, I'm 49 years old. And when I was growing up, I thought the world was going to be exactly as it was when I was a kid. Now, we both know that there's been tons of changes. I now have a computer in my pocket I call a phone that I rarely use as a phone. So there are all those changes that we've seen. But Chloe's growing up in a world that she's just seen change. She's had a complete childhood of change and technology growing and getting smarter and, you know, really coming into our homes. So, you know, when we talk about digital obesity, we really have to make sure that Chloe is protected from all of the change, but embracing it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we need to remember though is that these things we don't learn these things by accident.
No.
We don't learn them from a textbook either, but we don't learn them by accident. They need to be explicitly taught and modeled. And families already do a great job of that at home. Families are the leaders of teaching children about character and values, but the school needs to be an extension of that as well. We often talk about schools having signature experiences. We walk into schools on a regular basis in different parts of the world, and you walk into a school and you just get a feel for what the school's like. Well, it's actually more to it than that. There's a set of behaviors or an environment or a climate or a culture that Chloe needs to be a part of that impacts her in a very positive way. So, I mean, you walk into a school sometimes and children might be looking to the ground or just walking past you or ignoring you, but think about those schools you've been in where the child smiles and says, "Hi, how are you?" to a stranger as they walk past. That happy, friendly personality. Think about the way the teachers interact with the children. Are they positive and uplifting, or are they very focused on just exams and just grades and you did get a good result or you didn't do so well in that exam? Or maybe something more uplifting like, "Gee, you're working really hard, keep on working on that," motivating children. Again, this is the climate environment children need to live in. Both it's an extension of home, positive environment at home and a positive environment at school that encourage children to want to learn, to want to find out new things and respond well to some of the changes that are happening in the world at the time.
Yeah, and we want to make sure, just to build on your point, Greg, we want to make sure that Chloe knows how she learns. We want to make sure that Chloe knows, what her learning looks like. What are her strengths? What are things that she needs to work on? We know Chloe is going to need to be a lifelong learner, so she really needs to understand her learning style and be able to communicate. This is how I learn best. This is how I process information. So this is going to be very important for Chloe to be able to evaluate her own learning, her own growth, setting goals for herself. These are things that she's going to have to do forever. And like you said, these are things that she doesn't learn on accident. They have to be taught with purpose.
And the thing is, we need to make sure that Chloe's not a victim of the future. She needs to have agency, she needs to have control over her own perspectives and on what the future's going to look like for her.
Yeah.
So rather than be scared of it and say, oh, well, this has happened, therefore I have to do this, she needs to have a perspective, well, because I know what the future holds, I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to move in the right direction rather than being a victim of it. She needs to talk passionately and be motivated and happy and smiling and excited about the future, not be a victim of the challenges or the crises that we face.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time for Chloe. And let us tell you about our Chloes here at Kingsgate International School. Our Chloes, as young as year 1, are leading the student parent teacher conferences. They're able to talk about their learning. They're able to talk about their goal setting. They know what learning looks like and they know how they learn. So that's one of the most important things that we need to make sure students are doing. And they're doing it here at Kingsgate. And they're doing it under the direction of, I'll say it, some of the world's greatest teachers. Yep. I said it and I mean it. We have the greatest teachers here at Kingsgate. They're not only focused on the academics, which obviously is important, but they're focused on creating an environment that flourishes learners, that teaches them values, that teaches them to be lifelong learners, and teaches them to embrace technology.
Yeah, I must admit, I was blown away during the pandemic when I realized that all of the facilities were irrelevant.
Yeah.
All of the other things that we normally associate with schools were irrelevant. The only thing that was relevant was the connection between the teacher and the child.
And the parent.
And the parent. And this proved to me what's most important in schools. It's high quality teachers. They really make a difference. I know at Kingsgate we believe very strongly in having high academic achievement. The truth is you've got to get good grades in order to move into university, to have the skills to succeed in life. But more importantly, you need to be able to apply that information. So the classes here are very practical, very hands-on. We very much approach a Da Vinci concept of learning where we believe in blending together creativity, the sciences, mathematics, as well as traditional academics as well. It's a coming together of all those areas because we know that in order for children to be critical thinkers in the future, to adapt to changing environments, it's not what you learn, it's learning how to learn and continue to be able to progress and learn along the way.
Absolutely. I like to call it, we let our students get messy with learning. They're in there with it and they're touching it and innovating and creating and designing. And it's exciting to see. And we welcome you to the Kingsgate campus to see all the great things that are happening here. We'd love to have you join us. And I'll throw in how cost-effective our school is as well. Do you want to tell them about that, Greg?
Yeah, one thing that amazes me is when parents try to evaluate the quality of a school, they need to focus on the right things. Mm-hmm. I mean, why would you send your child to a very expensive school without knowing the quality of teachers that exist?
Yep.
I mean, our school is arguably 20 to 30% cheaper, less expensive than other schools with a lesser standard of teachers. Our teachers all come from the UK, US, Canada, Australia, fully qualified international.
Highest quality teacher.
So I mean that's really the key difference. So I challenge parents when they visit a school is look at the facilities, look at the library, look at the swimming pool, all those kind of things. But more importantly, find out who's teaching your child because they're the ones that are going to make the most difference for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to answer any and all of your questions. We would love to see you and we'd love to have you visit our school. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at Kingsgate International School.
See you real soon.
Bye.
Bye.